Ever notice how being interrupted feels like someone cut the wires to your voice? When someone jumps in while you're still mid-sentence, the reaction isn't mild, it's immediate. It feels like a shock to the system, like the floor just shifted beneath you. There's a moment of cognitive disorientation where your thought is still alive but stranded, unfinished, and suddenly irrelevant. This isn't just annoyance, it's psychological disruption. Being interrupted strikes at the core of expression. I was speaking, and you decided it wasn't worth hearing. That lands as a micro-invalidating moment, a subtle message that your voice can be overridden. And for people who think deeply before they speak, people who choose words carefully, interruption feels even worse. It's not a casual break in conversation, it's a collision. Their ideas don't come out impulsively, they unfold, and interrupting them is like pressing stop in the middle of a sentence that hasn't reached meaning yet. The urgency of this issue is simple. Every interruption diminishes connection. It fractures trust in dialogue. It teaches someone to compress thoughts, to silence themselves, or to give up on finishing ideas altogether. That's why some people react so strongly, sometimes even disproportionately, to being cut off. They're not being dramatic. They're defending cognitive space, emotional space, and basic respect.
There's a reason this matters more than people realize. Today, we're not just exploring why interruption irritates. We're uncovering the real psychological roots beneath it. In the next few minutes, we'll dig into why some people feel unseen when they're interrupted, why the brain reacts so sharply when speech is cut short, and how interruption actually affects identity, emotional safety, and communication trust. This isn't about politeness. It's about dignity. It's about the fundamental human need to finish a thought, to be heard fully, and to know that your voice isn't just tolerated, it's respected. We'll go deeper than surface annoyance, deeper than casual frustration, because for certain minds and certain histories, interruption isn't a casual conversational mishap. It's a trigger. It's a reminder of every time they were silenced, dismissed, or spoken over. By the end of this, you'll understand something profound. When you let someone speak all the way to the end of their sentence, you're not just being patient, you're giving them psychological space to exist.
Picture this. Someone is finally expressing something that matters. Maybe it's a vulnerable confession, maybe it's a carefully formed thought, and then mid-sentence, bam, someone cuts in. Outwardly, they stop talking. Inwardly, something collapses. The interrupted person feels their entire cognitive thread snap in half. The idea evaporates before it's born. Their mind goes blank, their chest tightens, and instead of finishing their thought, they withdraw. The conversation keeps moving, but they don't. They sit there thinking, why did I even try? This moment happens everywhere. Meetings, family discussions, friendships, and it leaves a mark every time. The interrupter often doesn't notice. They're still talking, still energized, still present. But the person interrupted, they've shifted into internal mode, silenced, minimized, erased. This is where the psychology becomes undeniable. Interruption doesn't just stop words. It stops confidence, momentum, and emotional presence. And if this happens repeatedly, the pattern becomes painful. people stop sharing altogether. They turn into listeners instead of contributors. Not by nature, by conditioning. Psychologists have long recognized that interruption is rarely neutral. It's often an unconscious assertion of dominance. When one person cuts off another, they're implicitly communicating, "My voice matters more than yours." Studies on conversational hierarchy show that frequent interrupters often have a subconscious need for control or validation. They don't just want to speak, they need to be heard first. In social dynamics, interruption becomes a subtle form of power play. It reinforces who leads the flow of dialogue and who follows. And for the person interrupted, it doesn't just feel rude, it feels like being pushed to the bottom of the conversational ladder. For those who value expression and clarity, it triggers a visceral response. Almost like someone reached into your mind and forcibly shut the door. The urgency here is real. When someone is constantly interrupted, they start believing that their thoughts don't carry weight. They internalize the idea that their voice is secondary, optional, dispensable. And that belief can bleed into self-esteem, communication style, and even identity. Interruption isn't small. It's a psychological distortion of belonging and significance. Now here's something critical. Not everyone processes thoughts the same way. Some people speak as they think, words forming midair. Others think deeply first, then speak. For reflective thinkers, introverted processors, or analytical communicators, the act of speaking is the final stage of a much longer internal sequence. Interrupting them is like pulling a book out of someone's hands before they reach the conclusion. Research on cognitive processing shows that people with slower, deeper speech formulation need uninterrupted airtime to bring a thought to completion. When they're interrupted, it doesn't just cut the sentence, it erases the internal scaffolding behind it. The thought collapses, the effort is wasted, and the emotional reaction is immediate: frustration, discouragement, and a feeling of invisibility. Meanwhile, the interrupter often assumes, "They weren't speaking fast enough," or "I already know where they were going." But that assumption is deeply flawed, because for someone who values precision and reflection, the meaning lies not just in what they say, but how they say it, when they say it, and the integrity of delivering it whole. The urgency here is this: interruption isn't just social, it's neurological. It's not merely annoying, it's disruptive to the mind's inner processing. And for those whose thoughts run deep rather than loud, interruption doesn't feel like a courtesy slip. It feels like intellectual violation. For many people, the pain of being interrupted isn't born in the moment. It echoes from earlier years. Maybe they grew up in a household where adults spoke over them. Maybe they were taught that children should stay quiet. Maybe every attempt to express themselves was met with dismissal, correction, or ridicule. For them, interruption isn't just a conversational breach. It's a resurfacing of an old emotional wound. Your voice does not matter. When someone cuts off their words today, it awakens that familiar ache, the sting of invisibility. The urgency behind their reaction isn't irrational. It's the nervous system flaring in defense. It's the heart remembering a lifetime of being talked over, minimized, silenced. And for those who are quiet by nature, or thoughtful, or gentle, the wound is sharper because they chose their moment carefully. They waited, listened, measured, and still weren't given space. So when interruption happens, the person withdraws not because they're weak, but because they've learned the cost of trying. Their silence isn't emptiness, it's self-protection. It's the closing of a door that was once slammed too many times by others. But let's pause for a moment, because sometimes interruption isn't malicious. Sometimes people don't cut you off because they're disrespecting you, but because they're excited, impatient, or nervous. Some people interrupt because their brain races faster than their mouth. They jump in prematurely not to silence you, but to connect, to build, to add enthusiasm to the conversation. They may even believe they're finishing your sentence in solidarity. So there's a possibility maybe the interrupter didn't mean harm. But even then, intent doesn't erase impact. The moment your words were cut short, the emotional effects still landed, the disruption still happened, and the psychological sting still registers as, "I wasn't allowed to finish." The urgency is recognizing that even well-meaning interruption carries consequences. It's not about demonizing every person who interjects, but about raising awareness. Because meaning well is not the same as communicating well. And even if someone didn't intend to overshadow your voice, it doesn't change the fact that they did. That's why this isn't about blame. It's about consciousness. It's about teaching people that excitement is not a license to override expression, and that true engagement means listening all the way, until the last word. Remember that feeling we started with? The sensation of someone cutting the wires to your voice? This is where it comes full circle. Because when you're silenced mid-thought, it's not just speech that's interrupted, it's identity expression. That moment of abrupt disconnect sends a message to the nervous system. Your voice is expendable. It feels like being muted in a conversation you were invited to exist in. And that's why people who hate being interrupted react so sharply, because they're not just protecting a sentence. They're protecting the integrity of their mind, their agency, their right to occupy space. Every uninterrupted thought is an act of self-assertion. Every finished sentence is a reclaiming of presence. So when someone allows you to speak fully, they're not simply being polite. They are affirming your existence. They are saying, "I hear you. I respect you. Your thoughts deserve completion." And that lands like oxygen for the mind. Because the truth is, finishing a thought is more than communication. It's dignity in motion. Here's the truth people rarely acknowledge. Those who hate being interrupted aren't too sensitive. They are acutely aware of the emotional cost of being silenced. Their reaction is not about ego, it's about validation. When someone listens without cutting in, it affirms something fundamental. Your voice matters. And when someone frequently interrupts, it communicates the opposite. Your thoughts aren't worth hearing through to completion. The urgency of this message is that conversation isn't just exchange. It's relationship. It's respect in real time. It's the invisible emotional contract between speaker and listener. When you hold space for someone's words, you're holding space for their humanity. That's why interruption feels like intrusion and full listening feels like care. The main takeaway is clear. Allowing someone to finish their sentence is one of the simplest and most powerful forms of respect we can offer. It tells them, "I value your mind, I value your presence, I value your voice." So here's the challenge. The next time you're in a conversation, slow down. Notice your impulses. When someone is speaking, resist the urge to jump in, to correct, to finish their sentence. Let them complete their thought without interruption. Practice holding silence, not as a gap, but as a gift. Make room for their voice, their pace, their presence. And if you're someone who has been interrupted your whole life, start reclaiming space. Speak up and say, "I wasn't finished yet." Your words deserve completion. Your thoughts deserve air. Your voice deserves space.